Welcome to the Holistic Feline and Friends podcast, home for all things holistic and healthful for our pets. I'm your host, Angela, and our producer, Fred, is here along with us. I have chosen a personal story to kick off the podcast and a journey many of you have followed on Instagram. Some of you know we adopted our very special girl, Millie, who has congenital hydrocephalus from Baby Kitten Rescue a couple years ago. And while under their care, she received life-saving shunt surgery. The most perfect first guest is Caroline Grace, founder-director of Baby Kitten Rescue in Los Angeles, California. Her rescue specializes in neonatal critical care and special needs kittens. They do big things for these little loves. I invited Caroline to chat with us about Millie's beginnings and journey through her eyes. We discussed Millie's life before rescue, hydrocephalus and her other congenital abnormalities, shunt surgery, and pre- and post-op care, including holistic post-op care. Episodes 1, 2, and 5 are dedicated specifically to our little Millie Moonbeam. We love you to pieces. So without further ado, please welcome Caroline Grace. Welcome, Caroline. Thank you so much for joining us on our very first episode. You're such a big part of Millie's life and our life. And so we could not think about doing this podcast without having you. So let's begin with introducing yourself to the world and what you do.
Thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm honored to be a part. I'm Caroline Grace. I'm the founder and director of Baby Kitten Rescue, the nonprofit animal rescue that Millie came from. Our rescue, Baby Kitten Rescue, focuses on neonatal critical care and special needs kitten rescue in Los Angeles, California.
Beautiful. We are going to start with Millie. It's all about Millie today.
I love
it. Her hydrocephalus, her life with you, and the surgery. So let's start from the very beginning. What was her life before BKR that you know of, and how did she find her way to you?
From what I know, because I didn't know her, she came to me at 8 weeks old. She came to Baby Kitten Rescue because we received an email from who she was with, her finder, saying, hey, I have this kitten. I think she might have hydrocephalus. And interestingly enough, another veterinary neurologist at a local animal hospital referred her to us, which I think is amazing. And I'm so honored that, our vets are referring people to us, especially our specialty vets. Anyway, kind of a long story short, this girl who had her, she cat sit for this neurologist. And so she showed her pictures of Millie and she was like, wow, I think that kitten has hydrocephalus. I think you should reach out to Baby Kitten Rescue. But before the cat sitter had Millie, the cat sitter's friend got Millie off of Craigslist. So she got Millie off of Craigslist as a kitten, I don't know, probably about 6 weeks old, and quickly realized that there was something different and special about her. Not only did she have a special paw, which we later found out is radial aplasia. We can go into that more later if you want. But she was very wobbly and tended to bump into things, and she had a larger than normal head. This friend was going to give her back, but the cat sitter said, no, let me take her. I cat sit for this veterinarian and maybe she can help. It was kind of a long road-ish to get to us, but I'm very grateful that she did. So once I got the email, she sent some photos, explained. I could tell from the photos that Millie most likely did have hydrocephalus. I had never had a hydrocephalus kitten before, so this is my first one, but I had just recently had another kitten with a rare neurological condition, Otter. He had a meningoencephalocele. Initially, he was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, but then later realized that was a misdiagnosis. But because of Otter, I had a connection with Dr. O'Neill, one of the top veterinary neurologists and neurosurgeons in LA, probably in the country as well. And I knew that he could do a shunt surgery. Because I knew I had the resources to take her, I was excited to take on the challenge of my first hydrocephalus kitten. I went to that cat sitter's house and met Millie and picked her up. Immediately fell in love with her. She was so cute and very friendly, even though I just met her. She had that big old noggin, and I just knew that She was meant to be with BKR.
Oh, she had a long road.
Yes.
So 3 people before she came to you.
Yes.
Wow. It was meant to be.
It was. It was.
For those who may not know, can you define hydrocephalus?
Yes. So hydrocephalus means like water on the brain, but what it really is, it's not water, it's cerebrospinal fluid. So every person, every cat, every kitten has cerebrospinal fluid in their brain that coats and protects the brain. But sometimes, like in hydrocephalus, the brain produces too much cerebrospinal fluid, and that causes a buildup of intracranial pressure in the brain, and that can cause a lot of problems, like ataxia, like seizures, and other neurological impairments, and also can be deadly.
So the signs and symptoms that she was showing, you mentioned she had the larger head, she was a little wobbly. And was there anything else that she was showing that was a little concerning?
Yes. I mean, her biggest symptoms were ataxia, which are, the wobbly walking and discoordinated movements. And then obviously the kind of telltale sign was that big forehead and kind of bulging eyes. Those are kind of common signs of hydrocephalus, as well as she also had some developmental delay. So she was still struggling at 8 weeks old to use the litter box, and kind of hadn't reached those developmental milestones that kittens at that age normally had. Those are all common signs of hydrocephalus. Thankfully, she didn't have another common sign, which is seizures. I was prepared that she might have them, but thankfully she never did. I'm so grateful. And I think that also, getting her on meds and getting her on a treatment very quickly, I think helped her to not progress to that point, which I'm grateful for.
And can you walk us through the sequence of the vet appointments and testing that she had in order to get her accurate diagnosis?
Yes. We took her to see Dr. O'Neill at Metropolitan Animal Specialty Hospital in Hollywood. When I took her, she was like 2 months old, so she was still very little. They couldn't do an MRI at that point, or they didn't want to. She was so little, they didn't want to have to put her under anesthesia if they didn't have to. What he did do was a transfontanelle ultrasound. Most kittens, cats, animals, people with hydrocephalus have open fontanelle. So the skull sutures that normally fuse together after birth, they remain open because there is excess fluid in the brain that is causing the brain to bulge. And so it makes the head larger and the skull sutures stay open. Because Dr. O'Neill has so much experience with this, he can do an ultrasound and see if there's excess fluid in the brain that way. So that's kind of the initial diagnosis. And at that point, he confirmed, yes, this is hydrocephalus. At that point, we went ahead and got her on the hydrocephalus medications to help manage and reduce intracranial pressure. She got on prednisolone, which is a steroid to help reduce inflammation in the brain, because when there is all this excess pressure, it creates inflammation, which creates more pressure. So she was on prednisolone, and then she was also on omeprazole, which is like a stomach acid reducer. However, for hydrocephalus, it works by helping to reduce the amount of cerebrospinal fluid produced by the ventricle. It helps, again, reduce that intracranial pressure, which helps reduce those neurological symptoms that can happen, like seizures. It did help. I think it did help a little bit with the ataxia, but I think getting the shunt helped with that even more.
I think you mentioned that she had a cyst in her brain.
Oh my gosh, I forgot she did. She did. Well, we didn't realize that. So talking about testing. So that was at 2 months. We did the transfontanelle ultrasound, then had her on the meds. Dr. O'Neill wanted to wait until 4 months to do the MRI. So the only way to really diagnose hydrocephalus and know the exact parts of the brain that it's affecting is with an MRI, because it can present in different ways, in different ventricles or on the outer edge of the brain. Once she got the MRI at 4 months, which felt like such a long wait to get to that point, and you're kind of always on pins and needles with kittens with hydrocephalus because they can go from being totally fine to in crisis overnight. You know, it's a delicate condition to treat and to work with. But at 4 months, she got the MRI. We found that she most certainly had severe hydrocephalus, a lot of excess cerebrospinal fluid in her brain. And she also had a cyst on her brain as well, which was creating even more pressure on her brain. So yes. And then after that MRI at 4 months, we kept her on the meds, omeprazole, prednisolone. We had to increase it as she grew. Then at 6 months is when she got her shunt surgery. And we really wanted it to be sooner than that, but it took a while to order the shunt. They don't make like specific shunts for animals, not at this point, because it's such a rare procedure to do. There's not that many veterinary neurosurgeons who can do VP shunt placement on animals. So you have to order a pediatric human shunt. So it took a while to order her shunt. She did not receive the surgery, the shunt placement surgery, until 6 months, which again was like the longest wait. It's so hard, but she did super great. And I'm grateful she made it.
So more of her diagnosis, I think you had also mentioned there was something going on in between her shoulder blades and there was like a dip.
Oh, well, yes, that was from her radial aplasia. She also, in addition to the hydrocephalus, she has radial aplasia of her right front leg. What that means is that the bones in a normal form of a cat are the radius and the ulna. There are 2 bones. And Millie was born without one of those bones, without the radius. She only has the ulna. That makes her leg a little wonky. It turns in a little bit shorter. So she walks with a little bit of a wobble because of that as well. And because of that difference in those 2 front legs, it also made her shoulders a bit uneven to compensate for that.
Okay. So it wasn't anything that she's missing per se right there, but in between her shoulder?
Not in her shoulders.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are the safety precautions that you took before surgery? I know she had a cute little helmet and she was a skater girl for a while.
She did. She did. She was so cute in her helmet. Yes, we took a lot of safety precautions. Like I mentioned earlier, hydrocephalus is a very delicate condition to treat in kittens specifically. They're so fragile. And because they have so much pressure already on their brain, if they hit their head on something hard, it can send them into neurological crisis or death. It's very important that you protect their head. In the beginning, I just had her, well, actually, until she got the shunt, I had her in a mesh playpen, so a soft-sided playpen with soft blankets and foam padded tiles underneath, and away from any walls or anything. So if she bumped into the sides of the playpen, it was soft. I didn't put like really hard toys or anything in there with her, at least not supervised. Once she got a little bit older, I wanted to give her more space to play and come out into more of the apartment, but I was so terrified that she would hit her head on something, especially because she does have ataxia and she is wobbly and a little uncoordinated from her hydrocephalus. So we have this amazing follower, supporter, Bruce, who we found when we had another kitten, Otter, who needed a helmet to protect his brain from a meningoencephalocele. I reached out to him and I was like, hey, could you make a helmet for Millie? We had to play around with the design because she needed a different design than Otter did. And she really needed more of that like soft, cushy padding. She basically just needed like a bump helmet, just to absorb impact if she did hit her head on something hard. Bruce is amazing. He came up with a helmet that fit her, that she tolerated, and that protected her head. And that was really amazing because it gave her more freedom. She still at night when she was sleeping or if I wasn't home would stay in her mesh playpen. So I knew she was protected. Then when I was home, which is most of the time, she could come out with her helmet on and I could feel that she was safe and protected from hitting her head. And she was a pretty wild kitten, as most kittens are. So,
I was going to ask, what was she like as a kitten over there?
Oh my gosh, so snuggly, so sweet, just purred nonstop, loved to play and like super playful. And she was pretty wild. Like she would love to like jump up on the couch and jump back down and give me a heart attack. And
she still does that.
Oh my gosh, she would do like alligator rolls. She would like go attack a toy and then just roll with it. And she was just wild and crazy and happy. She was so happy. But she definitely needed that helmet. So we were grateful. We were grateful for that.
Does Bruce make these types of things for animals all the time, or was this just something that he wanted to try to do?
He did it for the first time with Otter. And then after that, and especially because Otter got a lot of attention, other rescuers started reaching out and I would connect him. And still, and especially after Millie, and then people saw the helmet he made for Millie, and hydrocephalus is more common. It's rare, but it's more common than you think with kittens. I had more people reach out asking for his information. Of course, I always ask him first, but he's always been willing to help. So he's made quite a few helmets now, and he'll ship them all over the country. He just has a heart for rescue. He has cats of his own, and he's just so wonderful. So he's probably saved many lives with his helmets, which is pretty amazing.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Is he based in LA?
He is. He's LA,
Okay.
LA native.
Wow. Well, thank you, Bruce, for
Yes,
making
thank you, Bruce.
Millie's little helmet and all these other little helmets that you're making, saving little lives, little Earth Angel, just like you, Caroline.
Oh, thank you.
What were the options given for Millie in terms of what you could do for her hydrocephalus?
That's a great question. I want to acknowledge the fact that not everyone is capable of providing a VP shunt surgery to their kitten or their puppy with hydrocephalus. This surgery is not only incredibly expensive, but also there are very few veterinary neurosurgeons who are even capable of performing this surgery. Even more so why Millie was so lucky to receive it. But I just want to acknowledge that if you're not able to give your hydrocephalus kitten shunt surgery, it doesn't mean that you can't help them. And it doesn't mean that, they're not worth being helped. I just want to say that first. The options for treatment for hydrocephalus are, number one, do nothing. See how it progresses. Most kittens with hydrocephalus don't live past 6 months. A lot don't live past 2 months because the intracranial pressure becomes too much. They usually go into neurological crisis, which typically looks like status seizures, so nonstop seizures, and then they pass from that. If you don't have any options at your disposal and all you can do is love them and care for them and show them that they're important, that's enough. Just want to say that. But if you do have the resources available to you, then the next thing that you can do for them is to get them on some of these hydrocephalus meds. Omeprazole is, like I said, the acid reducer that helps to reduce the CSF produced by the ventricles. That is very helpful. I'm not a veterinarian. I'll start with that. Okay. I just know from my experience. I would start with the least intense medication, which is omeprazole. If the kitten is already symptomatic, especially if the kitten's already having seizures, then you'll probably also want to start prednisolone, or if they know the case is very bad. Ideally, we don't have our animals on medications for life, but sometimes they need that. And if that extends their lifespan by 6 months or 6 years, then that's amazing. There are some cats with hydrocephalus that have lived 6 years, 7 years on these medications. So they can be very effective. Now, every case of hydrocephalus is different. Sometimes these medications are just not enough. A lot of times. It just depends on the severity of the case, how quickly it progresses, and how the kittens respond to it. Again, these are prescription medications, so you're going to have to see a veterinary neurologist, most likely to get them. There might be a primary vet out there or a general practitioner vet out there that would prescribe them, but if possible, it is best to see a veterinary neurologist. A lot of veterinary neurologists don't actually have a lot of experience with hydrocephalus. Some of them don't even know that these meds can be used, but if you have one who's open to learning or who's at least more progressive in their own learning, then hopefully they would be willing to provide those medications. And then the last option is shunt surgery, and this has the best long-term prognosis, but again, extremely expensive, very hard to find a surgeon who's willing and able to perform the surgery. It does come with some serious risks. It's a very serious brain surgery. There are complications that can happen that can also lead to more neurological issues or death. Also, most shunts will need some type of shunt revision within their lifetime, whether that's like Millie 3 weeks after she initially got her shunt, or 3 years later, or multiple times. These are things to think about when you're getting a shunt surgery for your cat. But if you do get them the shunt surgery, it is going to give them the best prognosis, the best chance at a long, full, healthy, happy life. And a lot of times these cats and kittens will actually, you'll see a reduction in their neurological symptoms with their issues. Sometimes the seizures will go away. Sometimes their ataxia will improve and their coordination will improve. It's pretty amazing to see. And then they can just live a normal life. And then also once they get the shunt, a lot of times you can wean them off of all those medications, which is what we did with Millie, a very slow, delicate process. So now she just gets to live her happy, healthy, normal life just with a little shunt on her head. So it's a pretty incredible procedure if you are capable of getting it.
Can you explain to us what a shunt is and how that works in a hydrocephalus little kitty or little dog or human being?
I can speak from my experience with kittens, and I can only speak to Millie shunt, which is a VP shunt or a ventriculoperitoneal shunt. There are different types of shunts, but I'm not knowledgeable enough to talk about them. I'm sure Dr. O'Neill can tell you. For a ventriculoperitoneal shunt, what it is a device, give like a valve. They attach it to the skull, and there's like a catheter or a tube that goes into the brain that drains excess cerebrospinal fluid from the brain, and then another tube that goes into the peritoneal space, so the abdominal space. That is where the excess fluid drains to. When it goes into the abdominal space, it just gets reabsorbed by the body. It's a perfect circulatory system within the body. It doesn't need to be drained or cleaned or anything like that. That reduces the intracranial pressure in her brain and makes it much safer for her. Millie had a programmable VP shunt, which just means that you can change the rate at which the shunt drains fluid from the brain. You can get a fixed shunt, which just has one setting. You set it on and then you implant it and you can't change it. And usually that's fine. However, sometimes, especially because Millie got the surgery when she was 6 months old, there can be fluctuations in the amount of cerebrospinal fluid produced by the brain as a kitten grows and matures and develops. If you have a fixed shunt and then the brain produces a different amount of cerebrospinal fluid, in order to change the shunt setting on a fixed shunt, you would have to go back in, open her up, and redo the surgery. Versus a programmable shunt, which you can change the rate at which the valve drains cerebrospinal fluid from the brain from the outside with a magnet, which is a really amazing tool to have so that you can change the settings if needed.
Talk a little bit about your decision making in terms of which shunt you chose.
Yeah. When it came down to it, I chose the programmable shunt because I felt like it would give her the best quality of life. It was a little bit more expensive than the fixed shunt, but when you're already spending that much money, I was like, I might as well get her the one that I feel is going to give her the best quality of life and reduce the amount of times that she has to have brain surgery, potentially. Also, the other thing is, even though, I mean, Dr. Neal is amazing and super experienced, there's a bit of guesswork into knowing like how much needs to be drained. In addition to that, it's a very delicate process. Once you do insert the shunt, there is a risk of if it drains the fluid too quickly, then it can also cause the kitten to go into neurological crisis and death. So when you have a programmable shunt like Millie, we started it on a very conservative setting of draining less than we thought we needed, then increased the setting after she adjusted to the first setting for a few weeks. I think we might have done 2 adjustments just so we had a very slow process and we reduced that risk of draining too much. So that is one of the benefits of a programmable shunt as well.
Let's pop into what was the recovery like?
Her recovery was actually extremely smooth. They did want to keep her hospitalized for 3 days after, just so they could monitor her and make sure that if there were any problems, she was already there and, could be treated. But thankfully, it was super smooth. She woke up from anesthesia from her surgery and was trying to give people, the vet techs, head bumps through her kennel door, which was super cute. Then I picked her up and brought her home, and she was supposed to be on strict activity restriction for at least 2 weeks while she healed and adjusted. So I put her, back in a very large mesh playpen. I got a really big one where I could even sit in there with her and everything. She was acting like nothing happened. She came home, she was playing with her alligator, she was eating and using the litter box like normal, with her huge scar all the way from the front of her head down her back with her shunt. Yeah, I was amazed at how quickly she bounced back. And again, it was just kind of keeping her safe and keeping her in that padded area. She could not wear the helmet after that because we wanted to keep the incision very clean. She had to stay in that playpen for a couple weeks. I would just go in there and hang out with her, and she would play with her toys, and she was totally fine. I was really amazed at how quickly and easily she recovered.
Was she still on meds directly after the surgery?
Yes. So she was still on meds for over a month after surgeries. We did a very slow weaning off of the meds just to, be safe and make sure that we weren't doing too much too quickly. That was a really slow process. I think the whole process took 6 weeks of weaning her completely off her meds.
Can we speak a little bit about the revision that she had had and signs to look out for post-surgery, and then what was found, and then that surgery?
Yes, definitely. So 3 weeks after Millie had her initial surgery, she needed a revision surgery. So what happened was her abdominal catheter, so the tubing that went into the abdominal cavity, became dislodged from its location. What we noticed was there was a little bubble on the side of her body where that tube was going in. So instead of the fluid draining into the peritoneal space, it was just draining into the subcutaneous space. And while this wasn't a deadly complication, it was something that needed to be fixed. So she had to go back into surgery just to fix the abdominal portion. They didn't have to open up the skull portion to do that revision. But there are times when the catheter in the brain might need to be revised, or the shunt could get clogged. And in those cases, that would be a much more serious complication. And some signs to look out for in those cases would basically be shunt malfunction. Something's wrong with the shunt, whether it's clogged or whether the cranial catheter became dislodged or just stopped working. So then you'd be looking for neurological symptoms. It could be very mild at first. It could look like some vomiting. It could look like tiredness, a little not eating as much, or it could look like more ataxia, more wobbliness, falling over a lot more. It could look like nystagmus, which just means the eyes are shaking side to side, but the head is not moving. It could also be seizures. Those would be some signs, even the milder signs when you have a cat with hydrocephalus. If you have milder signs of illness, lethargy and vomiting, and you're I don't know, it's better safe than sorry. You want to take her in, ideally to the neurologist, to check her shunt and make sure that everything's still working correctly.
Were there any holistic modalities used before, during, or after her surgery to assist in her journey?
Yes. The one kind of holistic thing we did with her, and what we do for all surgeries, is using arnica. We started giving her arnica before the surgery, and we also gave her arnica after the surgery to help with bruising and inflammation and healing.
Arnica is amazing. I use it as well. Can you tell us how you personally prepare and administer it?
So normally, for humans, you get the little pellets, you put them under your tongue and dissolve them. Humans can use arnica. If you have inflammation, if you're doing a surgery or something like that, it's great. So we use the human pellets, and then we just dissolve a certain amount in water, and then we administer orally to the cat or kitten. It depends on size and weight and what kind of surgery and everything that they're having or what kind of injury they have. But usually we're administering it anywhere from 2 to 4 times per day. And then, usually administering it more right after surgery, and then kind of weaning off as they recover more. So yeah, I usually use one of those like little amber dropper bottles. And then I just put a certain amount of water, a certain amount of pellets. I dissolve it. I keep it in the fridge so it stays longer. It normally lasts for like a week and then you have to like remake it. And then we use a syringe to administer orally.
And how well does she take that?
She actually took that one pretty well because it doesn't taste bad. But the prednisolone and the omeprazole, oh my gosh, they taste horrible. And she hated them. So we had a whole routine. I would do like a little bit of churu and then the syringe of medication and then more churu immediately after. It was a whole thing, but we got through it.
Yeah, I remember seeing a video of you in the soft pen with her, and you were administering her meds and you were saying how she didn't like it. So you had to go really, really fast. And it was like super fast.
Yes, she did not like it. It's true. It's true.
I know that you all use the assisty loop a lot. Probably not, maybe not with her, but I have seen that before.
Yes, we didn't do that with her. So I had like a physical therapy assessment, but it was also like a kind of a holistic assessment. And I asked about a CC loop. They actually said not to use it with her because it could potentially create more pressure on her brain because it's like a magnetic field. So I did not use that with her, but I did ask about it. So I'm glad that you asked that. And I have seen like other rescuers sometimes using it with hydrocephalus kittens. And I just want people to be aware that it may not be the best device to use with hydrocephalus specifically, but with surgeries, SCC loops can be amazing at increasing healing and speeding up the healing process when it's not involving hydrocephalus.
And can you explain a little bit about what the assisty loop is?
We love the assisty loop. We use it for most of our surgeries, except if they specifically say not to. So what it is pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, so PEMFT. It basically just does these like pulse electromagnetic waves, but it doesn't make a sound. It doesn't shock them or anything. It's a loop. It has the field within the loop and a little outside of the loop actually as well. So you put the loop on the injured area. So you can also use it before surgery, like when we have kittens come in with broken legs or something like that, we'll use it on them before and after surgery. It helps with inflammation. It helps bones heal more quickly and go back together more quickly. It can help with gastrointestinal issues as well. So with our like incontinent kitties that are prone to GI issues, the CC loop can help with GI inflammation and irritation as well. So we love the CC loop. You can also do like PEMFT mats that are the same thing as well. PEMFT therapy is wonderful.
You're so knowledgeable. I love it.
Thank you.
So the ongoing hydrocephalus care post-surgery, can you speak on that?
Yes. The biggest thing like we talked about is being on the lookout for any kind of shunt malfunction. Always just kind of being aware and keeping a close eye on Millie, making sure that she looks healthy and there are no issues and no concerns with her shunt. And then if there are, you do need to take her to Dr. O'Neill or MASH ER if it's after hours. Then beyond that, there's not a lot of like daily special care that she needs. It's just like being aware of her shunt, and you don't need to worry about petting her on her head or anything like that. It's totally fine. The biggest thing is, again, looking for signs of shunt malfunction. And then, like we've kind of talked about recently, when she needs a procedure like a teeth cleaning where she has to go under general anesthesia, there are some additional precautions that have to be taken to keep her safe. So finding a vet who is capable of doing that. Beyond that, just loving her and all her special uniqueness and all of her little quirks that make her her.
It makes her so perfect.
Yes. Yes, I love that.
Are there any closing thoughts that you would like to say or you want to put out there into the world regarding hydrocephalus or anything that you can think of?
Yes, I would love to say something. I just want to reiterate what I said kind of at the beginning, which is if you have the opportunity to care for a kitten with hydrocephalus, please take it. These kittens are so special. And even though most of them are not long for this world, I promise you, like the time you have with them will be worth it. And even if you can't get a shunt for them, or even if you don't have access to a veterinary neurologist, giving them the chance by giving them just whatever specialized care you can, a softer environment, extra love that is meaningful. So I hope that more people will give hydrocephalus kittens a chance, because oftentimes they're not given that chance.
I would agree with that. And thank you very much for giving Millie the chance.
Of course, I loved it. It was my honor. It's one of my all-time favorite foster kittens, for sure. I loved it so much.
She's a special gal, and
She is very special.
think she's showing the world that it's possible, that if one has the means to do so, it's possible for them to live long, happy lives. But as you said, even if somebody does not have the means to do so, they're still worthy of everything that you can give them for what you can give them, even if it's love and a warm place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think something, special about Millie too is how many people's lives she impacted. Hydrocephalus is a condition that people also can have and be born with. And when I had her, I was shocked at how many people would comment and message saying like, I have hydrocephalus too, and I love Millie. I can relate to her, and she's so inspirational. And that was something that was very surprising that I didn't expect from fostering her, but it's something like really beautiful, really powerful.
She has the same shunt that children have. She's inspiring children who have it, who see it, and they could be scared of the surgery. And then they see little Millie went through the same exact surgery that they're going to have with the same shunt that they have. She's a beacon of bravery and courage and hope. And
she
is a big inspiration to a lot of people like that.
I remember there was like a PICU nurse who commented on one of the things that saying like, I work in the hospital with kids who have hydrocephalus and I show them Millie and they love her. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh, that's beautiful. Millie is magic and she's spreading her magic to everyone. It's so beautiful. Can you tell us more about your mission at Baby Kitten Rescue?
Yes. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we specialize in neonatal critical care and special needs kitten rescue. So we focus on the most vulnerable population of kittens. So whether that's kittens with hydrocephalus or who need brain surgery, or kittens who are paralyzed, incontinent, and in diapers, or kittens with medical issues and medical needs, missing a leg or with broken legs. And we rehabilitate them and get them as healthy as possible. And then the ultimate goal is getting them adopted. But we have a handful of lifetime cats in our care, because we're not going to ever abandon our kittens if there's not someone out there who's willing to adopt them. And there are some kittens and cats like Millie who need lifetime care that is more than you could ask an adopter to take on. For Millie, we continue to cover her specialty and ER bills for life, so that if she needs a shunt revision and she can go to these neurology checkups, we can cover that. And then we have our paralyzed incontinent cats, Alphaba and Rufus, who have not found homes and likely or not need daily specialized care. They are lifetime care cats as well. We also have another one who we recently acquired, a surprise lifetime care cat, Marco, that we have, well, he's still a kitten that we haven't even really given enough attention to on social media, but he has very rare condition that caused his sinuses to kind of get destroyed due to illnesses he had as a young kitten before even coming to us. He also requires lifetime care as well now. But it's beautiful because it just shows, our commitment to these animals. We get them as kittens. We do everything we can to get them strong and healthy and in the best place possible. Then regardless of how that turns out, we're going to make sure that they are cared for life. But we have had some very special needs kittens adopted, like Millie, and also like Frankie, who is now named Apollo, who's another paralyzed incontinent cat, and plenty of other kittens with special needs. That is amazing. And I also hope that more people will be open to fostering and adopting special needs animals, dogs or cats, because even if they need a little extra care, I do find that these kittens and cats tend to be so special so loving and so grateful for the care that we give them. Yeah, that's a little bit more about Baby Kitten Rescue and what we do.
How can people find you and support Baby Kitten Rescue?
We are at Baby Kitten Rescue on Instagram. We're at The Baby Kitten Rescue on TikTok and Facebook. And you can find us on our website, babykittenrescue.com. If you want to donate, you can donate on the website or through our Instagram links. If you want to foster, you can reach out through those links as well, or adopt. Then reach out to us if you have any questions. You can also reach out to us through the website.
Perfect. Please go support in any way you can. Because you're doing big, big things over there, and it's so incredibly special. And I learned of BKR through, I believe it was Kitten Lady.
Oh.
She had reposted about Bunny and Otter, and
Yeah.
I saw the brain situation going, and I was like, I have never seen such a thing. And he had like missing front legs and all this stuff going on. And I was like, I've never seen this before. And I was just sort of intrigued and curious. So then I started to follow Baby Kitten Rescue, and I was just seeing how logistically and operationally you are doing everything. And I was just so floored and impressed by how well and thorough every single level of care and compassion and empathy and concern went into every single life that crossed your path. And it was just so, so beautiful. And I was completely taken back by it. And I was like, wow, there needs to be more rescues like this with a full-on commitment to the lives of these little ones. So it was just incredibly beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means literally so much to me to hear, especially from you and an adopter and, of our sweet Millie. We pour everything, our heart and soul and time and energy and sleepless nights and money into these kittens because we believe that they deserve it and they're worth it. And I think that the meaning of that goes far beyond that one life. It shows that like all lives are worthy, whether they're animal lives or human lives or whatever it may be. And, we need to be celebrating differences and not looking at them as a negative or a bad thing. So, thank you for helping to spread that mission and also believing in that and showing people, like these kittens are amazing and they deserve to be loved and cared for and to live these long, beautiful lives. So thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. They are so special and deserve a life full of love. So we will have all of the Baby Kitten Rescue links on our blog for this episode on theholisticfeline.com. And Caroline, we want to say thank you so, so much for joining us and for all you have done and continue to do for Millie and all the babies across your path. You're a rock star in rescue, and any animal that graces your care is one lucky soul. Thank you for all that you do and for the little lives you touch. We love you, and Millie gives you a big old hug.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. And thank you for adopting Millie and again, giving her this big, beautiful life, being the queen of the house like she wants and deserves. And, helping spread the mission that these cats are worthy. And thank you for having me on the podcast. This has been so fun and I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you for listening to the Holistic Feline and Friends podcast. It is created, hosted, produced, and released with love, and my hope is you learn something along the way. When we know better, we do better. Please share your knowledge and our podcast with others. For more educational content, follow us on your favorite podcast platform, as well as Instagram at The Holistic Feline and online at theholisticfeline.com, where you will also find our blog that includes corresponding posts for each podcast episode with links to all the good stuff. Thank you again. We'll see you in the next episode.
The Holistic Feline and Friends podcast, website, blog, and socials are for informational and educational purposes only. All information, suggestions, recommendations, or comments, whether by written, verbal, audio, or otherwise, either direct, indirect, or association, is not a substitute for professional veterinary care. Please provide your pets with a minimum annual professional veterinary visit, and more often when health concerns arise. The Holistic Feline, Angela Warwick, and all guests and associates are speaking from experience and education. Please continue your research and form your own opinion. This is in no way a means to diagnose.